And to ASUU strike in sight, this House leadership meets union executive members.
Strike will be called in a matter of days. What we have again with ASUU now is basically to put everything on paper, sign off.
I hope this time around, there will not be any attempt by any party or group to create something that will also make us run into anything again. We hope that this will be the final.
Czech Republic inaugurates president and head of transition government. Promised an inclusive transition period, inclusive of the youth, of women, and the generality of Chadians.
Borno State governments to rebuild police formations in liberated local government areas.
Good morning, Nigeria. Today, we continue our conversation on the 2023 Appropriation Bill of the federal government.
Now, since the presentation of the 2023 Appropriation Bill of 20.51 trillion naira to the joint session of the National Assembly, Nigerians, including economists, manufacturers, and other stakeholders, have continued to analyze the provisions contained therein.
Now, some experts who appeared on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday had divergent views on the budget estimates for 2023 fiscal year.
And therefore, for Professor Uche Owaleke and Professor Mai Kobadan, the assumptions are realistic as the budget tends to lean more on non-oil revenues. Kinsley?
Now, they were of the view that the interventions from fiscal and monetary policies, the growth rate of 3.75%, of course, is achievable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but they however emphasized the need for government to deal decisively with oil theft to facilitate revenue generation for the country.
Now, other guests, including Professor Ken Ife and Shuaibu Idris, had dissenting opinions on some of the assumptions in the appropriation bill, especially with regard to inflation and growth rates.
Really, they said inflation may be higher than the proposed 17.19% in view of the scale of flood that will likely affect food supply, describing the growth rate as too ambitious.
Well, the guests said that the government should strive to reduce the costs of governance, remove oil subsidy, increase capital allocation, and of course reduce recurrent expenditure, because according to one of the guests, Shuaibu Idris, these are unusual times and there is need for accordingly adjustments to the assumptions.
And they decried the level of borrowings, saying it will compound the debt situation in view of the high level of economic crisis in the country.
Well, the guests also indicated that the budget estimates do not seem to appreciate that there is a crisis in the country, as I just mentioned a while ago, requiring strong reforms or adjustments, of course, with a human face.
Truly, they advocated also the inclusion of more assumptions in poverty and unemployment, as well as misery index in budget preparations, as well as also budget procedure law for sustainability.
Well, what you just said now with regard to assumptions regarding the misery and poverty and unemployment indices is to say that it ultimately ought to be part of the annual budget, that this is government's target. We already know that the government is striving to take 100 million Nigerians out of poverty, but year on year, how many Nigerians, for instance, are intended to be taken out of poverty in 2023? How do you intend also to reduce the misery index, and how many jobs do you also intend to create going forward? So, but which areas of the appropriation bill should be looked into critically by the National Assembly, which now, of course, has the bill before it and has to act accordingly to the provisions of the Constitution. So in other words, which of the assumptions should be tinkered with, and what kind of reforms are required to improve the economy, and more particularly in terms of reducing the cost of governance, where should the knife go to? These are some of the issues we intend to be taking a look at, as we'll of course focus on the Appropriation Bill 2023 one more time. I'm Kingsley Osavelo. Thank you for tuning into the program.
And I'm Yusuf Nadabusun. You're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. And in line with our tradition, we shall serve our complimentary segments in the course of the program. But for now, here's the morning news with Nordin Avelame. Good morning, Nordin.
Good morning, Adabo and Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria. And here is the news. Leadership of the House of Representatives and the Academic Staff Union of Universities are confident that the ongoing strike action by members of ASUU will end soon. At a reconvened meeting Monday evening, House Speaker Femi Bajabiamila said demands such as provision of revitalization funds and salaries have been taken care of.
In a matter of days, what we have agreed with ASUU now is basically to put everything on paper, sign off, and I believe if we had met yesterday, ASUU and the papers have been drawn up, ASUU I'm sure would have called off the strike today.
He added that 470 billion naira is being provided in the 2023 budget, while a tripartite meeting will be held with House leadership, ASUU, and Office of the Accountant General of the Federation concerning the UTA's salary structure proposed by ASUU. President of ASUU, in his response, commended efforts of the House leadership, saying that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
What we have seen today, I think for the first time since this action started, we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. But this is the first time we are having a such thing that I hope this time around, there will not be any attempt by any party or group to create something that will also make us run into anything again. We hope that this will be the final.
This meeting is the third between the House leadership and ASUU towards resolving the lingering strike. General Muhammad Idris Deby Itno has been formally inaugurated as President of the Transition Government and Head of State of the Republic of Chad. This followed the extension of the country's transition period to democratic governance to 2 years by the National Sovereign Inclusive Dialogue, otherwise referred to as Forum for National Reconciliation.
Transition period. Inclusive of the youth, of women, and the generality of Chadians. He's promised to deliver on time elections to the country. Then, of course, he's also promised a lot of economic benefits, and also to bring the Chadians together. And he talked about a new Chad that they want to see, and that the importance of exploiting the wealth of that country together for the benefit of the country.
It is important for the country that this powerful neighbor, Nigeria, stands with them at a moment when they are making this important decision to begin the process towards.
Stakeholders at the third Nigeria Digital Economy Summit holding in Abuja are looking into how Nigeria can become a global technology leader by harnessing opportunities brought about by the fourth industrial revolution.
Even central banks all over the world have to rethink their roles. And we've been saying this to our central bank in various ways, that, hey, look, you've got to start rethinking the role of the central bank. Blockchain will challenge the centralization of monetary authority. With the sheer number of people going to universities every year, that we're going to be building brick-and-mortar universities in the next 10, 20 years. Impossible. We must develop appropriate policies, regulations that promote rather than inhibit innovation and commerce. We can be world leaders in the Web3 revolution. The only limit is our vision.
And on politics, People's Democratic Party is assuring Nigerians of its readiness to restore the country's economy, provide adequate security and jobs for the teeming unemployed if voted into power in 2023. Presidential candidate of the party, Atiku Abubakar, stated this at the PDP presidential campaign flag-off in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State.
Even the thoughts of our unity that have been fractured, restore hope and faith in our common dreams and aspirations begins today. I'm hoping that what we did to them in the 16 years, we will go back and do it again.
Person that can feel it with enormous experience is nobody else than Atiku Abubakar.
We rescue Nigeria from hunger, we rescue Nigeria from poverty. And also to bring back the unity that we require in this country. There's a great problem in the land, and we are looking for a rescuer.
Similarly, All Progressives Congress APC has inaugurated its Women Presidential Campaign Council. The campaign council, headed by wife of the APC presidential candidate, Senator Remi Tinubu, was inaugurated by President Muhammadu Buhari at the presidential villa.
All of you once again to begin organizing and to mobilize vigorously at all levels for APC's victory and the 2023 goals.
Our party has also done well to recognize the importance of women and youths who form a majority of the electorate by involving them in the entire political campaign movement.
And I have immense confidence in the ability of the amazing team assembled here today to secure the women's vote for APC.
I demand from women a stronger and political spirit of cooperation and understanding in our engagements. You would realize that women make up more than 50% of the voting population for that election.
Hope is here. Hope is here. Assurance is here. Promise is here. Prosperity is here. Health is here. Security is here.
I charge the women team to go all over Nigeria, particularly in the grassroots, and sell the agenda and the vision of our candidate.
We are more than encouraged with your turnout today and with the pronouncements that we've heard from you.
And on security, Governor Babagana Umara Zulu Borno State Governor has restated commitment towards a rebuilding of police formations in liberated local government areas as part of the post-insurgency recovery phase of entrenching civil authorities. Governor Babagana Umara Zulu made the commitment together with the Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba, at the inauguration of Divisional Police Station and Barrack in Kaga local government area built by the Nigerian police.
Commend the current leadership of all the security agencies in the country for the synergy that exists between them.
We speak at the meeting center, which I have promised. I have done it. It is in the making. The local government chairman has provided a space. We are going to put some tools that will give you some traits.
It is the first in-person meeting by the IMF and the World Bank since COVID-19, and a lot has happened in the global economy since then. The IMF and World Bank opened their doors to receive policymakers, business community, and civil society organizations.
Those are all issues. We have World Bank has a lot of data coming out. We did our poverty report last week for the first time in 2 years, or it's a 2-year cycle. It shows 70 million more in poverty, and also very concerning, a 4% reduction in median income.
We have to join forces to help emerging markets and developing economies that are particularly hard hit by tightening of financial conditions.
That's the news for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues with Nadabo and Kingsley after this break. I am Nolin Ebel Ame. See you at 10 a.m.
My son has always dreamt of being in the spotlight. That's why I give him Bonvita for everyday vitality that gives him the strength to pursue his dreams. Bonvita, strength to dream.
Oh, that John! But wetin come bring all of Monaco hospital?
We just come say make we collect our second dose of COVID vaccine.
For your pregnant wife?
Madam, women will get belly and women will dey breastfeed. They come strong for who will supposed collect the vaccination because it will protect them and their pikin from to catch the virus. Plus, it is safe when well.
That's the reason why me say I carry my lovely wife come, so that no she forget bed, that protection join. It be like say our turn don reach. Madam Naija, make you follow me road.
Try collect the vaccine because it will protect your pikin from COVID-19. Plus all your family members and your neighbors say. Now Oga Sabi road o. Shey you no go follow Umo road.
My name is Dr. Chinonso Egemba. Then they call me Aproko Doctor. The COVID-19 vaccine na ogbonge way to take protect you and your family from wahala, sickness and death from COVID-19. To get your own free COVID-19 vaccine, sharply go any healthcare facility wey near you.
What is happening? Your eyes are red. Your hand is a machete and a gun. See, I am angry and I can't even contain it. See.
Oh my guy, calm down,
See,
calm down.
I have planned to go and destroy these people's businesses in the city. I have to retaliate for what they've done at our place. They cannot even take and have it now, never.
If you destroy their business here and they destroy that of those close to you over there, especially that your brother who sends you steady cash, how would you survive? Would your dreams be on hold?
What you're saying is correct, but I'm still angry.
This way is to embrace peace. With peace and unity,
let us embrace peace and unity. Let's learn to live as brothers and sisters for a progressive, prosperous nation. This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Well, the housing solution we have developed is a multifaceted one. First, we have tried to lead a program to build what we think will be an acceptable and hopefully affordable housing type based on surveys we did in 2015-2016 and construction that started in 2017. And that's going on in 34 states as the National Housing Program.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as the elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
Now, the maiden edition of Nigeria-Egypt Trade Conference and Exhibition is underway in Cairo, Egypt. And for details of that, here is Alika Panachi Orwa.
The two-day conference is jointly organized by the Nigeria-Egypt Cultural and Socio-Economic Forum in collaboration with the Embassy of Nigeria in Cairo and Egyptian African Businessmen Association under the auspices of the government of Egypt. The conference will bring together government ministers, governors, ambassadors from Nigeria and Egypt, along with over 300 delegates, visitors, and exhibitors.
5 or 6 fintech unicorns in Africa. Those in Nigeria has some unique competitive advantage that offers any investor opportunity to succeed.
Nigeria-Egypt Trade Conference and Exhibition 2022 is meeting under the theme For Africa by Africa, exploring the African Continental Free Trade Area after. Meanwhile, transportation costs in Abuja and its suburb have increased as the current scarcity of premium motor spirits, popularly known as petrol, in filling stations persists. This is as black marketers continue to have a field day, selling fuels as high as 4,000 for 10 liters in front of major filling stations with long queues of vehicles and no petrol to dispense. A recent look across Abuja shows that transporters have hiked their fares by as much as 50%, and there are few vehicles, thus leaving many commuters stranded. With business news, Alika Opanachi, Arua.
Thank you very much, Alika Opanachi Arua, for the business package. Coming up next, newspaper review.
Okay, let's start the newspaper review of the National Star this morning, and then see what we have on the front page of this the newspaper.
Okay, you have I have the Nigerian Tribune.
Okay,
and then you also have one of them publication.
Yeah.
Let's begin by taking a look at the window page of the Nigerian Tribune, which is fairly busy this morning.
Yeah.
Above the name flag, you have the following headlines: Transfer your support for me to Tinubu. Buhari tells women. APC inaugurates Women Campaign Council. That's on page 46. Vessel conveying stolen crude oil to Ghana set ablaze in Delta. That's page 52. And then below the nameplate, ASUU optimistic says there is light at the end of the tunnel. Buhari to address no work, no pay. That's according to Bajabi Amila, Speaker of the House. We have agreed that between now and tomorrow, which is today, we're going to get some documentation signed that we can take to our members, and we will do that as quickly as possible. From what we have seen today, for the first time since our action started, we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, and that's on page 2. Buhari to confer national honors on Lawan, Adewola, Okonjo Iweala, 443 other Nigerians and foreigners today. Weekly Backs Award for Infrastructure Delivery. While Lagos-Ibadan train stopped 4 times in transit, according to Nigerian Railway Corporation. Details on page 4. The reason, of course, is that the rail tracks have been vandalized. That's why the Lagos-Ibadan train service stopped 4 times. The tracks have been vandalized. PDP ready to rescue Nigeria from hunger, poverty and insecurity. That's according to Atiku. Says party lifted Nigeria from bottom to top. APC brought woes. We are waiting for Wiki and others to join us. That's according to Ayu. Fire guts Kogi Assembly Complex.
Okay, the National Star is our next paper to review. The front page, if you can we have the National Star, please. The National Star has this story at the very top, and it begins this way. It says, Fire guts Kogi Assembly, which of course Kingsley just read from the National Tribune. And coming down below the masthead, you have 3 stories lined up there, and one is on page 4, which says, political termites will never return to power. Tinubu blasts PDP. And on page 22, Federal tackles Akere Dolu insists support for Obi beyond Southwest. Page 22. And on page 12, Tampolo's men impound oil vessel laden with stolen crude. Tampolo's men impound oil vessel laden with stolen crude. That's on page 12. Still, coming down a little bit, the big story on the National Star this morning is talking about education. It says we will sign deal in a couple of days. This coming from ASUU. We will sign a deal in a couple of days, according to ASUU, and this is coming out of the meeting it had with the leadership of the House of Representatives yesterday. Now coming down a little, it says, sit at home, 4 soldiers fear dead as gunmen hit Enugu again. Get details of that on page 4. Moving down a little, on the, that very photo story which showed the flag of the PDP campaign for 2023 elections. We have this story that says, Nigerians not interested in our quarrel, Ayu tells Wike. Nigerians that is not interested in our quarrel, Ayu tells Wike. And wherever there is 5 PDP governors shun campaign flag off. We get details of that on page 21. And I think Kingsley, these are the only stories we have on the National Star this morning. It seems like Tribune is very much loading there. We're loading, so much congested somehow.
Well, the front page is busy.
It's very busy indeed.
Let me say that I want to make a comment on the ASUU story. It said ASUU optimistic says there's light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. Buhari to address no work, no pay. That's according to Bajabi. Let's go back to the lead story of the Nigerian Tribune. If you see that on the front page, I'm just wondering. First of all, let me preface my comment with the following statement. I'm not seeking to pour petrol on the raging inferno. I'm not seeking to do that.
That should be understood very well.
It should be understood. It should be understood. But what is right, and what is proper is proper. What is it that ASUU is doing at the moment? The Court of Appeal ordered ASUU to obey the order issued by the National Industrial Court, which is to say, go back to work. And when they approached the Court of Appeal, if you recall, the Court of Appeal gave them some time, about 24 hours or so, for the parties to go and negotiate and report back to the Court of Appeal. And when the parties failed to reach an agreement on the basis of that negotiation, the court then said that we will not hear you until you have obeyed the order of the National Industrial Court, which is to say, resume work. If the Court of the National Industrial Court says resume work, the Court of Appeal say resume work. What are you still doing? They are talking about negotiation. You resume your work and you can continue your negotiations. Are you now saying that it is on the basis of the subsequent negotiations that you will now resume work in defiance of the court order? I don't understand it.
We've been talking about this in this on this program, really talking about impunity to some extent. I'm not saying that ASUU is becoming so contentious, but of course the fact still remains that there are windows, I want to believe, that could be opened for negotiations after they have resumed work. That's one. After they have resumed work.
Which is the order of the court.
That's the order.
So resume work. The court gave you a window of opportunity to negotiate. You might say that the window was too short, but you agreed when you were before the Court of Appeal. And now when the negotiations failed, the court said, look, go and obey the court order before you return. Going to obey the court order doesn't mean you should go and start. The court order doesn't say go and start negotiation, because you have already joined issues before the National Industrial Court. If it is to say resume work, then you resume work if that is what you want to do, not acting in contempt as though, yes, as I said earlier, I'm not pouring petrol on an inferno, but the point is this: what is proper to do? What are you obeying? Are you saying that you are working on your own terms to say that, oh, it is where you now negotiate? You are negotiating with the legislative branch of government, not with the executive branch, and the critical issues still remain. I don't understand. I have difficulty understanding, the dynamics of all of this. If it is to say resume work, you resume work. You can continue. Resumption of work does not debar you or even the federal government from engaging in negotiations. If the federal government then says, no, we won't negotiate with you because we're already in court, that becomes a different consideration. But the court says resume work, then what is all this? You are optimistic that there's light at the end of the tunnel. The court says there's light already at the end of the tunnel. At the end of the tunnel.
Go back to work.
Go back to work.
When you say, Kingsley, when you say you don't understand, I don't know what Nigerians, the layman, not lawyers, would say. As a lawyer, you say you don't understand this. So then what do Nigerians say?
Well, I mean, what I mean by I don't understand it, you use the word impunity. It's a simple contempt. The only saving grace then just might be that, the order was given on the weekend, and then yesterday was a public holiday. But today is the first day of work. You should be seen to be respecting the laws of the land by way obeying court orders. You continue with the negotiations, get down, crunch the issues, and then, of course, we can then deal with it.
Well, that's it. We're waiting to see what exactly will come out of that. And we hope there is going to be real light at the end of the tunnel, a final light for that matter, not a light that would just come and go off and then strikes resume after some time. There's a story I read in the Nation newspaper much earlier this morning that's talking about, Wike making the list, or the top of the list of, governors that would be, awarded with the national, award of,
is it national honors or something?
National honors, not national honors.
No, it's not. It's
an award there, just an award to be announced very soon about his infrastructural development in River State. He tops that list really, according to the Nation newspaper this morning, and I think that's very much commendable. You can see there on that page, a Wike Bags Award Infrastructure Delivery, and that's on the front page of the Tribune. Now, talking about Wike, when you look at what he's been doing all this while for the past 2-3 months or so, in spite of he's being embattled in courts, I think he has been doing a lot. He had never shown any stress or distress, all right, in spite of what is going on. He has always been a little bit focused on what he has been doing, try to deliver those infrastructure to the people of River State. On the average, I was told he somewhat, sort of constructed really 12 flyovers, 12 of them. All right, all through.
To decongest
and and some other areas that needed decongestion in River State. I think that's a big kudos to the governor of River State. I think he deserves that.
No question. I mean, we see him every time on television, on live TV, commissioning projects or inaugurating one of the developmental activity that his government has undertaken. It's been focused on delivering infrastructure, particularly roads. To be honest with you, I mean, Port Harcourt, that used to be called the Garden City, fell into a great deal of disrepair. Each administration can only strive to do what it can in the meantime, but of course he is focused on delivering roads and bridges, and the next coming administration will continue to do more. Their questions have been raised, though, or comments have been made that, these projects are mostly concentrated in one part of the state. The thing is to say, look, next time another person has an opportunity, spread it, and it goes on and on and on. The other thing that I'm not comfortable about, and I had cause to raise this on Good Morning Nigeria in the past. So when we talk about roads and roads and roads and roads, fantastic. But I tell you something, Nadabo. We're having all these roads now, but what is the level of access to potable water in those areas? Potable water, public water supply. Yes, everybody has a borehole and so on and so forth, and we know the hazards associated with that. So, going forward, at some point in the future, when the Rivers State government no longer under weekend will now say, fine, our priority now will be to provide potable water by way of reticulation. To say you have a major source of water supply, you want to take the pipes through all those roads that you have constructed, they will not be excavated, the pipes laid, and you'll be lucky if those roads are covered back. So I would have thought that in terms of priority, you would say that I don't know, I haven't visited any of those sites to be sure that there are utility drains or utility ducts rather that have been created so that when you are doing your water reticulation and so on and so forth, you are not then digging up the roads all over again. And you very well know how these things are. You dig up a road and then you don't cover it up. From there, deterioration starts. That's a good one. But it's a good observation anyway. It's a great one. Thanks. I think that we still have a lot to hear about stolen crude in the Niger Delta. And Tompolo and his boys have done this now by seizing a vessel, impounding it, how they handled it, of course, by way of destruction and so on and so forth, and the environmental pollution. But it's a signal to the crude oil thieves, and these are some of aided by Nigerians, but mostly foreigners, that there is a new deal, and that new deal is highly intolerant of the thievery that has been going on in the Niger Delta in terms of the national assets.
I'm just after that, I don't think that would be what I would pray it wouldn't be anyway, for this very negative practice to escalate to the level of banditry and kidnapping in this country, because it has assumed so much very high level this time around, and it's becoming more or less. When you keep telling lies according to some, according to the parlance in commercial advertisement and things like that, even if it's a lie, we've been telling on and on and on, it becomes the truth in the ears of those who listen. If we keep going with that, then it seems like maybe we'll get used to, oil theft and then, banditry and kidnapping and the rest of it. But I think you won't go to that level anymore. Well, we're watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll now take a break. We'll be back after the break with a discussion program. Stay with us.
Don't just wake up your child. Wake up the champion in them. Give them energy to help them win every day with Milo at breakfast. Milo Active Go and the natural goodness of malt, milk, and cocoa helps wake up the champion in your child. Milo.
We are all Nigerians. Against all odds, we shall and must remain united. We may have our challenges, our problems, and setbacks. However, together we shall overcome them all. What doesn't break us shall make us stronger. This is the mindset that shall bring peace, progress, and prosperity to our beloved country. Do not let tribal and religious sentiments govern how you think, act, or feel. Don't be influenced by those who want to destroy our precious national unity. Everybody who's a Nigerian is your brother and your sister. This is the mindset of the new Nigeria. It is also the mindset that we must all adopt. Let us support each other in creating the Nigeria of our dreams. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the election, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time No matter about elections alone, people talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
The center is purposely established in order to provide these services that are examinations, medical examinations and investigations that were not provided for in Kano as well as the entire Northwest region. It is equipped with modern technological equipment in terms of radiological services. We have MRI 1.5 Tesla, we have digital X-ray as well as 4D ultrasound equipment. The importance of the center cannot be overemphasized. Just within 1 year, the center attended to thousands and numerous patients as well as medical examinations. NKDC is established in order also to provide these healthcare facilities as a discounted price.
This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Dialogue, empathy, love and unity. These are vital components of nation building.
For all to be well, we appeal that we should refrain from volatile, provocative, inciting messages and language.
Let's build and not destroy.
And of course, to continue our conversation on the, appropriation bill, let's take excerpts from yesterday's discussion.
I think the benchmarks are realistic because I've read some arguments, saying that they're not. I think they're largely, are. If you take the oil price benchmark, for example, $70 per barrel, and you consider the trend in the oil price, you consider projections by energy, international energy agencies, you would come to the conclusion that $70 per barrel is realistic.
What need to be done will be implement strategies and measures to, resolve the issue of oil theft very quickly, such that, more revenue, naira revenue for government and foreign exchange to strengthen the external reserve position and the naira, will be obtained.
There's also the need for us to look at how else we can manage down the expenditure, because I don't know how quickly the report about consolidation of these other NDAs to reduce costs and a lot of cost of governance, because that will also reduce the impact on the budget. And then of course you have the revenue mobilization and revenue strategic revenue initiatives being followed by the Ministry of Finance. Very, very commendable. We need to have more traction on that.
Till now, the government has lacked the political will, the courage, and indeed the determination to implement, that gospel report by Steve Orosenya and his team. And I believe it will be good if Mr. President could please give us that as his parting gift.
All right, now those were excerpts from the first part of our conversation on the 2023 Appropriation Bill of the federal government. And that conversation took place yesterday. Today, we also have a number of guests. Of course, two of them are regulars on Good Morning Nigeria. Here in the studios, let's welcome Tope Fashwa, who's an economist. Tope, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning.
And joining us from our Kaduna Network Center, Professor Yusha Ango, Professor of Finance and Entrepreneurship at the Kaduna State University. Professor Ango, glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning.
Okay, joining us again via Zoom from Lagos is Shegun Ajayi Kadiri, Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, MAN. It's a pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning and thank you for having me.
Amongst here via Zoom is Honorable Benjamin Kalu, spokesperson of the House of Representatives. Good morning. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me, and good morning to Nigerians.
All right, gentlemen, once again, we're glad to have you join us for this conversation. Let's begin with Professor Yusha Ango. Generally, what is your take on the appropriation bill? Is it one, I asked the same question yesterday, that is likely to deliver the public goods and therefore make an impact on some of the numbers that aren't quite salutary at the moment?
I was opportune to watch yesterday's program, and I agree substantially with much of what the panelists said. But I want to say specifically that what I saw in the budget presented, the proposal presented, is a tradition first that we must be happy that we are consistent in ensuring that budgets are presented such that the January-December period will be respected, which is what has been achieved of recent. Secondly, another thing that was obvious, of course, is that year in, year out, we have seen budgets increasing. You know, what we see basically is year in, year out, an increase in budgets. And that is also something that was consistent. And then, but very importantly, we can see that there is the deficit, which is now more or less traditional, is continuing and is growing. And I think the level now has reached a level, especially when you look at it vis-a-vis the amount that has been budgeted for debt servicing. The recurrent expenditure is increasing, both in terms of salaries and overheads, and also debt servicing is increasing. That is also something to look out for and to be concerned about. And then, of course, because it's a year which is the last presentation by Mr. President, administration, perhaps there is not much growth in terms of capital expenditure. Perhaps what they are trying to do is to conclude on what they have started already. That is also clear. Now, in terms of assumptions and things that have been made, you know, preparatory to the budget, I substantially believe that they were reasonable. The assumption, especially pertaining to the benchmark price, is reasonable. Now, the assumption pertaining to the quantum of daily production of petroleum has been discussed yesterday. I mean, of oil has been discussed yesterday, and I noticed, you know, unlike most other projections, it's a lower figure now instead of 1.8 that was projected last year. Maybe because of what has been achieved, which was, as Mr. President said, was 1.3 or thereabout on the average. So what we are projecting now is 1.69 million barrels per day. Given what I have seen in terms of what you have discussed just earlier in this program, perhaps if we can reduce the number or the volume of theft, perhaps that can be achieved. So that is also realistic. The exchange rate is an issue, certainly, that is somehow that we have some concern about. In reality, we have almost 4 exchange rates, you know, moving side by side in this country. The trader uses the black market to, regardless of how he sourced or she sourced her foreign exchange, you know, they are still using the black market rate. Then there is the official rate, there are the exporters, you know, window and all that. So in that respect, I think, you know, even though the price of 435 or thereabout as against 410, which was projected last year, appears to be more realistic, but then there is some work to be done in that aspect. So basically, what I saw in terms of assumptions that were made now as a foundation for the budget were reasonable. You know, they were reasonable. My only concern, sincerely, is the volume of debt servicing relative to, because I mean, as we are increasing the debt sometimes, then there will be need for debt servicing, and debt servicing grew, I mean, based on this projection by a huge percentage. Just like I said also, emoluments, staff payments are going to increase by about 21%, and other things, you know, overhead by about 40%. And I think those are the concerns. And I think there are areas, and has been discussed yesterday, in which some of this deficit can be reduced. We cannot sit down and wait, you know, and say until we have enough money, you know, to do some projects. But then we have to find ways of increasing this revenue. Yes, there is an increase, but it is far from the 15% revenue to GDP, which was the target of government itself. So 8% is low. And I think sincerely there is need for this country, you know, for us to face this problem squarely, you know, and know that we really have a revenue challenge. While we are reducing costs, we should also know that we have the revenue challenge. But we should not live and continue to operate as if everything is normal. I think we are approaching a point, except if we want to stop completely, we are approaching a point whereby we need to be sincerely very serious about raising revenue and then reducing expenditure, so that the country will move and the economy will move accordingly, rather than waiting for a point when we will not be able to probably pay our own indebtedness, you know, or service our debts. I hope that will not come to that. Thank you.
Professor Ango, let's come to the studio now and then hear from Tope, you know, Fasho, an economist. Tope, the president has presented the appropriation bill to the National Assembly. At least you must have heard and read about this so much, I believe, as an economist. And of course, I don't know whether you have really watched our conversation yesterday. And no matter what, in any case, we really want to really have your assessment of this budget vis-a-vis what we are going through now. I'm talking about the implementation of the 2022 budget, which is heading towards a close by December. And what is in the offing is being worked out. There are so many consensus being put forth by our panelists yesterday, and of course, Professor, I'm going to refresh your minds on this.
Thank you very much. You know, the professor had said quite a lot of things around the budget. Essentially, the government is continuing along the lines of, you know, you see a general pattern around their conception of what the budget should look like. But I must say that this time around, they're doing something remarkable because for the first time, budget is getting to the $40 billion level. Now, this one is $47 billion as proposed. One of my issues, which I've always written about and spoken about, is the fact that our budget per capita is one of the lowest in the world. If you look at this $47 billion, it's about $220 per person. This $220 is what will be spent on everything: your security, education, agriculture, health, infrastructure per person. If you move around Africa, Angola, you'd see about $2,800. Algeria, you'd see about $1,900.
I'm not really cutting you short. You continue for sure from where you stopped.
Yeah.
I want us to be using the Naira. People can
the reason why this is important is that, you know, at the end of the day, a dollar is a dollar, and at the end of the day, you know, it's always very important to do this analysis, because sometimes you may be living in an illusion. So the budget looks humongous, and people say, "Oh, why are you budgeting 20 trillion?" You know, but the point is, you have to look at the dollar terms. Because again, the country, we are very largely import intensive. A lot of what we need for security, for everything, will have to be brought from abroad. So I just wanted to note that, as much as many people will criticize the budget, I think that the government is thinking in terms of the humanity, the humanistic perspective of the budget, to say, what exactly are we giving our people? So aside from that, then you now begin to look at the issue of deficits and what have you. One other remarkable thing is this, which I tried to point out to the minister when they first did the initial MTF reading some months back.
when the singular assumption of our budgets has always been around crude oil. And we say we want to move away from crude oil, we want to diversify the economy. So why are we still making that the sole assumption? So the sole assumption of our budget is we want to produce 1.6 million barrels of crude oil a day and want to sell at $70 a day, and this is the exchange rate. How significant is that petroleum sector to the economy? In fact, with the kind of reductions we've been seeing in production, perhaps that sector would have shrunk to about 13% or less of the economy. Why is it then driving the entire economy? I would have wanted a scenario where you can make assumptions for government revenue across the board, including the petroleum sector, not singularly the petroleum sector. Noting the fact that according to NTA, only 30% of that petroleum revenue comes to Nigeria. In fact, I told the minister then, even though of course things are very difficult to change in government, but the idea is that when you put up that kind of assumption, you don't blame an average Nigerian who brings out a calculator and says, 1.6 million per day times 70 times 365. See the amount of money Nigeria is making, and that is the discussion on the streets. That's the reason why many Nigerians are angry. But the point is, apart from the fact that we're not making that 1.6 million, we're probably making $1 million a day, now, but only 30% comes to Nigeria. So why would you not make a third assumption if you must talk about crude oil and say, having made this assumption, only 30% is coming to Nigeria, and then, but everything falls to pieces from that point on. People say, no, we're making so much money from crude oil, we're making this level of deficit budgeting and all of that. And in terms of revenue, the government will always say that we have a revenue problem. I say, well, there's a way they want to tunnel everybody into that perspective. The point is we have a revenue problem. We have an expenditure problem. When you talk about maybe the Oversight report, which the president said will now be looked at in detail. However, I see a scenario where every government tries to run away from that. And so we're talking about this again at the tail end of this administration, with the next administration being strong enough to implement it. And, but can we do it in a way that people don't have to lose jobs? Can we move people around? I personally feel, as an economist, that we have many opportunities to employ people in this country, even in the public sector. I'll give you one or two examples. Number one, in the security services, in intelligence gathering, the police, even the army. We need more boots on ground. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Leo Irabo, said about 2 weeks ago that Nigeria had 137 unmanned borders. Now, it's either you're putting boots on ground, or everybody is it's going to be very expensive to maintain such a structure, but it needs to be done. Boots on ground, people gathering intelligence, securing the country. Most of the countries we go to abroad that we come back and say, oh, it's a wonderful country there, those are police states. You can't make a move without somebody checking you. It doesn't have to wear uniform. In a place like Dubai, many of the taxi drivers are CID men. You may not know. We misbehave, they drive you straight to the police station. And that's why you can't do anything. Under 24 hours, they get you. The educational sector, we have 20 million children on the streets, according to UNESCO. For me, I see an opportunity, teaching jobs. I see opportunity for construction of classrooms en masse in this country. I see opportunity for a social sector, a social services sector. The other time I was watching a documentary in the United States about the foster care system. It's a huge industry around children, and around children that are out of home, children that are having problems and so on. A foster care personnel is given about 6 or 7 children to manage. We have 7. So look, what the world does, what I've seen the world do, is to organize themselves around the peculiar challenges that face them. That's what Nigeria has refused to do, and that's what we must do. So for me, I'd say that give or take if we can go after the inefficiencies and reduce and kind of increase what they call value for money in our economy, especially in public spending, give or take, if we can do that, this budget is not a very particularly bad budget if we can ensure that we get more value for money, if we can ensure that there's government efficiency in spending. I say that the budget is not a bad one, and we're moving on a certain trajectory that's looking at the humanity of our budget, rather than saying, some people say, cut down the budget. Look, if we had times 5 of this budget, we will still be tending towards development. We want a budget that can drive the growth in the economy. We're talking about 3.5% GDP growth expected in a country where you have inflation at 20.5. You're already in deficit. Where you have population growth at 2.6%. So there's a lot we can do. And I want us all to think, even those who are outside government, let us begin to think for our country, and let us begin to imagine and be thinking big for our economy, rather than just...
Thank you very much for the points that you have raised. Just before we bring in the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, perhaps we should note this as well. When you were saying that the per capita value of our budget is around about $200 or so for each Nigerian, but you were looking at the size of the appropriation bill for the federal government. We have 36 states in the country, and we also have 774 local governments. You have 36 states, and you also have the Federal Capital Territory. The budgets of these subnational entities have also not been computed, because those budgets are not being delivered outside of the country, but also within the country.
Let me quickly chip in there, that my analysis is based on federal budgets. Okay, when I did my analysis, which is even available on the internet, was strictly based on federal budgets of all of these countries that I talked to you about. Even in Kenya is doing for this year is doing about $25 billion. So that's why sometimes, of course, you can stretch the argument to purchasing power parity from one country to another and so on. And indeed, a dollar in Nigeria goes further even than it goes in Ghana, than it goes in Benin Republic. That's funny, which is a different analysis that we should also conduct to say exactly what are our advantages. People buy Indomie from here and take to Ghana. There's an arbitrage you get from there. Cigarettes and even alcohol is perhaps the cheapest in Nigeria. And that dovetails into our revenue. Every time the Federal Ministry of Finance says, listen, let us increase excise duties on cigarettes and maybe alcohol, the manufacturers, or sugar tax, the manufacturers will say no. So the point now is this: we are holding down revenue. Okay, but we should also understand what our advantage is. About what the analysis I've made is strictly on federal. And of course, all of those countries I mentioned, they have county budgets, they have local government, they have state budgets as well.
That's fine. That is fine. But the counter view would then be that federal budgets are not exclusive to federal citizens. Federal budgets are for everybody. And then the budgets of the subnational entities also apply to those who are basically resident within their own territories, or who come in and who go out. I'm just saying that when we are making those absolute, giving those absolute figures to say that, it's $200 equivalent in terms of per capita, perhaps, I'm just saying perhaps, we should factor in the subnational quantities. But let's bring in now the Director General of the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. You saw him earlier telling us, see him on the right side of the screen there, via Zoom. What is the disposition of man to the numbers that we have in the appropriation bill, as well as its general intendment?
Okay, thank you very much. And I think it's quite important what you added in the last bit of your comment, that we should look at 36 state governments plus the Abuja Federal Capital Territory, as well as the local government, so that we can have a total picture of government spending which should match the expectation of the citizens. But to come directly to what you said, I think the manufacturers have worked very keenly at the issues surrounding the 2023 budget. We had actually expected most of the assumptions. We know that, for instance, Nigeria is cash-strapped, and we know that there is a lot of deficiency in terms of infrastructure and and what is needed to make the environment conducive for business. So when, and I won't bother to talk about the figures, it has been well laid by the first two speakers, but just to give a bit of a context in the environment in which the budget is being implemented. I think we are coming from a background of a 3.54 growth rate of the GDP, and then we look at a possibility of scaling up in that regard. And that means that the priority that ought to be given to the productive sector should become something of central importance. In the budget, the president by himself mentioned the issue of the manufacturing sector, which means that government has plans to ensure that all the pain points that manufacturers are confronted with are addressed. And we can relate that very quickly to the spendings that government wants to make. To look forward to a percentage that is less than 7% in terms of what is going to be spent on infrastructure becomes very, very so. When you see capital budgets coming to levels where they are not up to recurrent expenditure, is traditional, but when the gap widens, one worries whether the sector will be able to have enough support to grow. The capacity utilization, for instance, for manufacturing has remained less than 60%, which means that the environment has continued to limit the capacity of the sector to scale. We look at the budget, being able to arrive at situations where identified and familiar challenges are addressed. So the finance bill for 2022, which the president has promised while giving his speech, that it will be considered simultaneously with the 2023 budget, becomes a very, very, very important factor for us. In the sense that government has said that that they are going to look up to the private sector to ensure that we realize the income that is being expected. What this means is that the sector will be expected to provide income in terms of taxes, fees, and levies. Already, even before the budget is implemented, we are seeing a scale up, and the last speaker did mention it, that manufacturers normally will complain about increase in excise duties, and there is this common attempt to compare us with neighboring countries or with other countries of the world and give indication that we are experiencing the lowest tax rate. But it is usually taken out of context and not considered with all other taxes that are being charged on the manufacturers. For instance, there is a bill before the president about NYSC tax, which is 1% of the net profit of manufacturers. There is also the attempt to link every agency that is being created funding from the private sector. So when you look at the cumulative figures for taxes that are being levied on manufacturer and manufacturing business, you should not isolate the ones like the previous speaker is saying, and probably reasoning why manufacturers should not make that complaint. But on the whole, I think that the budget coming early has made it possible for manufacturers to plan, and I think this is a plus for government. We see that the expected income from oil is quite ambitious, given the fact that insecurity has remained a major concern. But the discovery of illegal refining, I think, has given some hope that government is serious about tackling that major challenge. And then also the focus on trying to ensure that we do not escalate our debt profile too high. When you continue to look at debt to GDP ratio as basis for considering that we are not in troubled water, I think a 118% debt to income ratio should be worrisome. at the end of the day, it is the effect of servicing of those debts that is going to impact on the monies that can be made available to develop infrastructure. So I think on the whole, the budget there were really no shocks for us in the manufacturing sector. We had expected that it was going to turn out this way. We can only hope that when the aggressive drive for revenue is being made, it will be such that it doesn't compromise productivity and it doesn't limit the capacity of industries that are struggling to survive. One last point I want to make is the fact that the budget is set, but it is a transition government. So we should look forward to a situation where we will not have any abrupt changes. So in essence, the government should ensure that the transition period between the time of the election and the handover, that a lot is done to bring the new government abreast of issues, ongoing issues and expectations, so that we will have as much as possible a seamless transition even in our monetary expenditures.
Oh, thank you so much, Segun Ajayi. Segun Ajayi is the Director General of the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. Now, he raised some issues here, including, especially those that affect the Manufacturing Association of Nigeria. I'm talking about goods being produced here in Nigeria and, of course, consumed by Nigerians. 7%, of our infrastructure is a bit worrisome for the association, looking at how this, the infrastructure sector normally affects their own, capacity to produce more, which is only at 60%. Now, let's hear the views of, Benjamin Kalu. Honorable Benjamin Kalu is the spokesperson of the House of Representatives. And of course, you received the president, and of course, he gave you what he feels is good for Nigeria, talking about what to spend in 2023. And he did the same thing in the past 7 years or even more years as far as democracy is concerned since 1999. But let's just be specific about this. 2022 is just being rounded up, and of course 2023 will be the implementation date for the very document on your table. Now, against the background of the implementation and the performance of 2022 budget and what you've just received, what exactly is therein in this new very document that seems to be a little bit different from what we have in 2022? And what else do you want to do differently to make things better for Nigerians? Not forgetting the fact that Nigerians are still complaining about the fact that 2022 budget is yet to be seen on the table for them.
Thank you very much for having me. First of all, I want to commend, like most people there have mentioned, that back to back in a consistent pattern, we have been able to prove those who believe that it was going to be an epileptic intervention by the legislature on this returning the budget to the constitutional calendar for the budget. We have, I want to celebrate the leadership of the Senate and the leadership of the House of Representatives, as well as the executive, in this rank-free relationship that has projected national objective of nation building first. And the ripple effect of having the budget laid early, pass early, both for the private sector and also for the public sector. Having said that, yes, this budget has been laid. There are expectations in the mind of Nigerians, and we represent Nigerians. And we will not be defending the budget because we are not the ones who presented. But there are things that we're going to be looking out for, one of which will be the parameters that we recommended when the MTEF was moved to us. We're going to make sure that this budget is a reflection of all those parameters captured in the recommendation of the MTEF that we pushed to them. There are certain ones that we have already on the face of it agreed with. For example, the 1.69 million barrel per day production, we have also, for 2023, we've also agreed with them that, yes, the GDP projection at 3.75% it's not awful. We of course agree that 17.16% on the inflation rate is not way out of the books. We also as concerned as Nigerians that the 11.3 trillion our deficit, is on the high side, and so we are going to be looking out in this budget. This current debt servicing that is continuously going up. What are the steps taken by the various NDAs to address it and to make sure that steps are taken to, bring it a little down, to review it? We're going to be looking at that. We're going to be also looking at this domestic and foreign borrowing that will be starting at 8.4 trillion, though they have not provided the details for us to to review it properly. But we are sure when they are presented, we'll be able to take a stand on that. But most importantly, everybody's talking about revenue. And I've had the Manufacturers Association give a good presentation, just like all of you. Honestly, I must say, this is like a public hearing for me. This is like a feedback mechanism for me. I'm making notes because I know this budget, we need the feedback from people like you who are major stakeholders to be able to make this law a way that reflects the needs assessments gotten from Nigerians. And one of the things they raised was tax. Let the tax not be so much that it will now impede the stimulation of the manufacturers, manufacturing sector, that all of us are asking that we must produce what we must, buy what we produce. We must stimulate our economy by making sure that the principle of local content goes beyond oil and gas and enters into other sectors, especially the manufacturing sector, to be stimulated and increase our income. But in doing that, we're going to be very careful in looking at the unwarranted waivers, tax waivers. We're going to look at tax exemptions. Some are relevant, some are totally irrelevant. You cannot be struggling with an economy that has this huge debt profile, and you are granting exemptions and waivers unnecessarily. So our Copic look is going to be on that. Our spectacle, we're going to be putting it on, focusing it on that, and who deserve this exemption, who should get this waiver, and all that. Another thing we're going to be looking at in this revenue is to look at how the lack of compliance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act has affected, our internally generated revenue. How are they complying, all these agencies, and the lack of remit.
It looks like we've lost Honorable Benjamin Kalu. He was in full flight and just got interrupted in mid-sentence. Honorable Kalu, if you are back there, we can... all right, so we're back online now.
Yeah. So we're going to be looking at how they have been remitting, because we found out in the course of our own investigation that most of the agencies are spending their internally generated revenue, and they are depending on circulars raised by government. And this is against extant laws. This is against Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You don't spend money based on government circulars, And we've also discovered that there is no common electronic platform, used by the NDAs, used by the Office of the Accountant General, and also the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, in reconciling remittances around all these agencies, in real time. It's not existent. So we're going to be looking at the steps they are taking to make sure we have a common electronic platform to make sure real-time remittances are coming, and the issue of depending on the 437 for dollar, we are not contesting that. I don't think it's unreasonable, but effort must be made to bridge the gap between the parallel market and the official rate, because the disparity is not healthy for our nation. So we're going to be looking at that. And then the oil subsidy. Beautifully enough, the Minister of Finance, we had an interactive section with her privately in one of my committees, and the explanation she gave on why the federal government is looking at reducing oil subsidy, not cancelling it totally, outrightly, was quite reasonable. And if you look at it, you will see 1.7 trillion that is now on oil subsidy, and we'll be saving about 740 billion in oil subsidy, which we know we are going to push back to the debt profile, the 11.1
deficit profile. So the question becomes, why are we not cancelling it fully now? And the defense we took from them, which we believe that will work, and we are in agreement with them, is that if you remove oil subsidy, outrightly, you create another monster in the economy. The experts there will tell you the shock will be so much that it will impact on other aspects of the economy. So if it is phased, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, so it will help the economy to absorb the shock and gradually wave it out. So we're going to be looking at that step, because I know that by June there's going to be a review on this particular oil subsidy. So these are some of the things we are going to be looking at, and a lot of people have celebrated $70 per barrel benchmark, and that it is all good. But for the House, we are thinking different. We are thinking that it ought to be more than that. We are thinking it should be about 73. With $73 per barrel, because of the factors that are obvious: Russia-Ukraine war that is going on now, the demand for oil and gas, which is on the increase. Though we are going to also be looking at, before that, it is important to know that if we increase it to 73, we are getting about 155 billion that will also channel to that deficit of 11.3, because it's a concern to us as a house. So we're looking for, where do we get this, how do we get it reduced? Because what is coming from Mr. President will not go back to Mr. President as he came. Anybody believing that is going to come and go back like that, then is taking the parliament for granted, because we will interpret what you are suggesting here as the feedback from the public. We will invite you to public hearing. We will know what you have to say, and then look at the T's and the I's. If they are dottable, the I's and the T's, if they are crossable. If they are not crossable, we will drop them and amend them. So, but having said that about about our oil and gas, it is important to know that the step of the government with the PIA is also a step in the direction that there is a transition from total dependence on oil and gas to alternative sources of energy, and that we are joining the global economy to move away from oil, fossil fuel, to something else. Efforts towards that direction is what we are going to be looking at. What is in this budget that reflects that we are making use of our hydropower, our being close to the Atlantic Ocean? What are we using it with regards to generating our power? What other sources of alternative energy are we embracing? What budget, what amount are we allocating to that? Is it enough? Can we shore it up and not the rest of them? So these are some of the issues that the House is going to be engaged with during our debate. You're going to see it play out in the House. I'm just informing you. But as per the budget, I'm not going to be the one defending the budget. The ball has been passed to us, even though not so 100%. The heads of the NDAs have a role to play. They have to come and justify the numbers that Mr. President has tabled before us. The President has done well, has kept to the calendar, laying it on time. But the NDAs are encouraged to come early, not to delay us. Some of them will now go for trainings overseas and travel. That should be cancelled. And we have asked Mr. President to make sure, as usual, all the end of the NDAs come early enough to present and just.
All right, Honorable Benjamin Carlo, we of course, I think you suffered the low bandwidth there. That's why there was a distortion to your audio. You made very valuable points, and we are looking forward to your bandwidth getting back up, so that we can come to you. Professor Yusuf Ango, I want to return to you and deal with an aspect that is somewhat controversial, but not fully examined in my view. And that also has to do with the real value that the budget upon its implementation will bring to the economy and then to the citizens. Take a look, for instance, at capital allocation. We know that the capital allocation suffers considerably relative to recurrent. Full salaries, full pensions are provided for, and stabilization. But questions have also been asked about the items under the capital expenditure, and whether in fact the legislature takes enough time to scrutinize the items under the capital expenditure. So even if it is 10% or 20% of the size of the budget, what are the items in the capital expenditure? And sometimes when you look at some of these things, the items you see that cars, vehicles, SUVs, and so on and so forth. What does that mean to the ordinary Nigerian? And how can we redirect this?
Thank you very much. First, I want to, before answering this, I want to comment on the last submission by the honorable member. I think sincerely he touched on very important things. Among them, most importantly, the issue of waivers. We are concerned, we are very much concerned about waivers. I read somewhere that as much as 6 trillion or so was given or is being proposed for waivers. Now, in the situation we are, these two things, waivers and subsidies, are things that, we need to do something about. We sincerely need to work on them. I know that, like he said, subsidy cannot be touched totally. We know that in reality, we are the cheapest, in terms of petroleum in the world, I believe, because the last I checked, everywhere else was paying much more than we're paying. Now, but I know that it's not easy to completely remove it, to remove the subsidies and all that. Now, but then it needs to be managed, we need to do something about it. And also, if you put that side by side with what Tope presented about the number of unmanned borders we have, to the extent that, of course, our petroleum ends up, they say, as far as Sudan, in some, countries where we are more or less subsidizing all over Africa, and all that. So that is a matter of concern. But the waivers, sincerely, we cannot afford them. And I believe it's not the best practice, I know concessions are given, for pioneer status and things like that. But other than that, giving waivers is a major problem. So substantially, what I will propose is sincerely is as much as possible to stop any waivers. Now, having said that, you are questioning about the capital expenditure and other expenditures for that matter, looking at them line by line. What I think, I have not seen maybe because I'm not in the government, I've not seen the template, but I think sincerely from what I read sometimes in papers, there are certain standard templates, even though it's zero-based budgeting we're supposed to be doing, but there are certain standard templates and people will just fill in the spaces and things, sometimes allocate sums regardless of really what should be. You now probably estimate something and put it there. Then after the period, you can now go around and see how it works out. I think that is what happens, not only in capital expenditure, even sometimes in recording. I know in recording is easier because like salaries can be easily calculated and things like that. But I think the energy is not put, especially by technocrats, who are actually the ones who are making the budget. I believe we're passing through a process and we're not probably giving it the attention it deserves. So I hope the National Assembly will give it that attention. But in addition, the National Assembly itself is guilty. I'm saying this because I know at the beginning of this administration, there was a lot of talk about padding and things like that. And even as late as this last submission, the president is saying he hopes that it will not be somehow, the National Assembly will not insert certain things, Yes, I agree with the honorable member that we will see something different, not exactly what was presented, but let it be based on certain assumptions that have changed. Let it be based on certain realities that have been removed. The National Assembly does not have the capacity in terms of manpower, to assess projects and cost projects. But how can they not be actually in the name of what they call constituency projects, be inserting sums? What they are inserting were sums, amounts, for certain projects, or based on assumptions. Even roads, when you are building a road of 1 kilometer in one place, it will be different from 1 kilometer in another place. So how are they able, because of, the spirit of what they call constituency projects? As far as I'm concerned, is not the right thing. This is not what happens. This is not the best global best practices. So I hope that they will look clearly or closely They not just rush, just like the technocrats have just prepared a template and submitted. They should be, especially at committee level, they should look at it thoroughly. And I hope and I pray that we'll reach a point in this country when we will not be in certain things. If you need something to be done for your constituency, go and try to lobby and reach out to the ministries so that they put it, because they will now be able to cost it properly, not for this to be inserted at the National Assembly.
So much, Professor Ango. Dr. Topesari, we're going to come back to you here and then maybe get your views about some of the issues he raised. But of particular note and of particular importance to me and to us is the issue of poverty index in this country, and of course the unemployment index too. And looking at year in, year out, budgets have never been static, they've been increasing. And a lot of people and Nigerians indeed have been looking forward to a situation where these two evils could really be tolerated, or if I must say accommodated to the minimum level, because you can't really eradicate poverty completely. Neither would you say you can completely eradicate unemployment, but you can bring it to the barest minimum. Looking at this budget and looking at what really we are going through against the backdrop of 2022 budget and what we are looking ahead in 2023, how are these indexes and how are they going to really translate?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Like you rightly said, in fact, in the field of economics, you need a certain percentage of unemployment in a society. Otherwise, people who are opening new businesses will not find anybody to work for them. So that pool needs to be there. It's about 3 to 4%. Maybe for an economy like ours, if we could target 6-7%, so that's that. However, we would need some fundamental changes and indeed some what they call shock therapies in order to be able to impact directly on that. For example, I gave example of areas we can create employment. We can in this country now. I think we need fundamental rethinking in some areas. The truth is that for so long, people who belong in the neoliberal school of thought in economics have always emphasized private sector, private sector, private sector. I tell people that the private sector is not in the business of creating employment. As a matter of fact, we're talking about the 4th industrial revolution, 5th, 6th, 7th industrial revolution now. And if you look at the 5th, 6th, 7th industrial revolution, which is already in play, even the 4th, it's about artificial intelligence, it's about contactless, a contactless world where you just there and machines are doing all the work for you. So the private sector will be interested in maximizing their profit with as few as people employed. Therefore, and I say now, people are moving around campaigning now. It is not the private sector campaigning to people that they will make their lives easier. It is politicians, government. Politicians who intend to go into government promising people that they will make their lives easier. So it's going to be preposterous for you to then say, after you've won an election, oh, go and meet the private sector, they will sort you out. No, the private sector will not sort you out. So as far as this one is concerned, for one, like I said earlier, it's a good budget in terms of the volume and the thinking behind it, the humanity behind it. But we have to look at, efficiencies in government spending, reducing corruption, increasing value for money in government spending and all of that. But I wanted to quickly comment on, some of the thoughts of the honorable member who is here with us. You see, there's an accounting issue here. Because when the honorable member mentioned that, look, they are thinking about $73 as against $70, and he did the multiplication, $3 plus the barrels and coal, it arrives about 155 billion, which will come to where? It's not coming to the government directly. So there's a problem there. And I think it's something we need to really focus on. Because out of that $155 billion, perhaps, according to NTA, they can ask Waziria, they can ask Oji Ogbenaya, who is there right now, what comes to Nigeria is 30%, maximum 35%. The rest goes to the international oil companies who are the ones that bring all the capacity, in terms of the technology and even to produce and get this crude oil out of the ground. Very important, so that we don't build castles in the sky. Also, I wanted to comment on the issue of these taxes. Whereas we're not talking about Nigeria increasing taxes on people, but you see, what the government is due to collect is taxes, rates, rents, fees, fines, duties, and co. So, for example, one lady made a comment in the only economic summit that the APC ever organized after they won in 2015, and she was a white woman, and it was in plenary. And when they asked that, she stood up and said, "Listen, you guys have been saying you don't have money to run your government," and so on. But I've been around, she must have been a diplomat. She said, "I've been around the world a bit, but Nigeria is the only country I've been to where nobody gets fined for overspeeding." How then do you intend to fund your budget? Of course, that question passed over the heads of all the people sitting there, but the point is this: we go abroad and we subject ourselves to discipline. And when a society is disciplined, the money to run the society will come, and secondly, there'll be less money. When they talk about excise duties, for example, the idea behind excise duties is that they are levied on goods produced within a country, but which has costs. So alcohol, people drink, they drive, they have accidents, they go to the general hospital. How do you fund that general hospital? That's why they put people smoke, they get a cancer, for example. They go to the hospital. How do you fund it? I was in Ghana. And in Ghana, I went to a restaurant, and when the bill came, we had 17.5% VAT, we had 2.5% education tax, we had 2.5% national health insurance, we had 1% COVID fee, we had 1% tourism fee in a restaurant on one single bill. So we're not saying that we need to get to that level, okay? But also very important to say that we need to begin to do sincere analysis of our situation so that we don't also throw the baby away with the bathwater. People buy Indomie from here, they take to Ghana. They buy Gary from here, they take to Ghana. They buy DSTV dish, they buy from here and install in Ghana. Somebody took 1,000 naira to Benin Republic, changed it, and he could only buy one Indomie and one egg. Yeah. So we need to understand our advantage. And also, we need that elite consensus as well. Okay, that whereas we cannot talk about taxing the poor people, even though everybody now in Nigeria needs to get more responsible, but that elite consensus must be there. Every time property taxes have been raised in this country, the discussion in different state assembly. I remember Akwa Ibom State, they shut it down. In the National Assembly here, they shut it down. Whereas that money will go to local governments and states, they keep shooting it down. You go to many of our state capitals, the states are complaining they don't have money. And even where they tax, the levy, the houses are meant to pay, the mansions are paying 2,500 naira a year. They even refuse to pay. You build a mansion in the village, or even you stay there in the state capital, to pay 2,500, 5,000 a year. So this is our only country. So we're not saying that we cannot. It's a chicken and egg thing. We cannot say that until we find 100% performance on behalf of government and all of that. We will not do anything. Lastly, sir. Government-owned enterprises, and I think the honorable member also mentioned it. A number of them have done us bad in this country. Okay, so the president also mentioned it in the budget presentation to say, look, he has realized that some GOEs will come here and get their own budget signed, they will not revert to. So maybe what he's saying is that they are running their own government. Okay, so when you're running your own government, you are even above the president. That whatever the president is laying, you don't regard it. And many of them, for a long period of time, when they make 100 billion, they will spend 99.5 billion, and the government will be chasing them to even bring back the remaining 500 million that they have made. So it is a disservice to this country. There are organizations that are making money on behalf of this country that are earning revenue. They have to be more responsible. They've tried, the government has tried, the Minister of Finance has tried, but they are still very, very powerful because they're the ones that collect the money. And of course, the National Assembly should also understand where this is coming from, because, allegations are thrown around and so on and so forth. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Tokwe Fashua, thanks a lot. We raised a number of very important points, of course, along with the other guests. The one on property tax, you are in Lagos, obviously. In Abuja. Okay, I thought you were still in Lagos. In Lagos, you pay the land use charge. It's property tax, a combination of all the taxes I used to have, including a tenement rate, and it's been going on for years. So a number of states have tried to
observe them,
not in Lagos. Not in Lagos. I can tell you that. Not in Lagos, but some states have tried to have their own equivalent of land use charge, but it hasn't quite worked out.
But most states have not really done that.
No, Abuja, even if it's a token amount.
There are about 500,000 houses, mansions that are vacant in this town. Vacant. That have been built. Some big men have built and forgotten they own those places. Okay. If we don't bring those things into such a structure, we are never going to find the money to run the country. Simple.
All right. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we continue with the conversation.
Today, we're here to tell you that while we may not be there yet, our military and other security agencies have succeeded and are succeeding in substantially restoring security across the nation. As far as the daunting security challenges we face are concerned, we can tell you that the worst is over. And never again will terrorists and bandits and their cohorts hold sway in our country.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Critical military objectives of total defeat of the terrorists in the northeast is already been achieved. Synchronized group and air operations have continued to inflict huge casualties on the terrorists, and they have been forcing many of them, including their commanders and emirs, to surrender in droves with members of their families. Whilst areas where terrorists hitherto had just some freedom of actions are being cleared, and socio-economic life is gradually returning to the most parts of the northeast. As while internal displaced persons are now returning to their ancestral homes to start life all over in dignity, under safe and more secure environment.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What we face mostly now are flashes of cowardly attacks from the rump of groups that have been routed in one location or the other, moving to another to give the false impression that they are still strong. Our ultimate goal is to eliminate them altogether and restore total and lasting peace over every inch of the Nigerian soil. Sounding tall, but take it home. We are determined to ensure that every inch of the Nigerian soil is safe. That determination is there, the order has been given. But we shall continue to protect the lives and property of Nigerians and foreigners in our midst. We shall continue to work for the peace of the nation and deter elements that constitute threats to the people. We shall bear the full powers of the government to secure every inch of our land. We shall not rest until peace is fully restored to Nigeria.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The security situation in Nigeria has been reasonably stable in spite of activities of unpatriotic elements engaged in various criminal activities around the country. Daily situation reports coming in from states. 2 months ago, it has shown relative peace on many of our highways, such as Abuja, Kaduna, Birnin Gwari, Sokoto, Zamfara, Kaduna.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
The counsel of our fathers.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it, we run away from it.
Nigerian youth, let's build our nation together.
You're Welcome back, and I still good morning, Nigeria, on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Let's go very quickly now to get the comments of Honorable Benjamin Kalu. Honorable Benjamin Kalu, if you are still there with us via Zoom, I raised the issue earlier about the real value of capital projects in the National Appropriation Bill. And ultimately, of course, in the Appropriation Act, that sometimes the items that are found in the Appropriation Act don't necessarily amount to one that will provide the public goods and therefore have a beneficial impact on the citizens. Now, there is also this view that has been highlighted by the ICPC. ICPC, of course, you know, is one of the anti-corruption agencies. In its 2022 budget analysis, Honorable Benjamin, please kindly listen to this. The ICPC says that there are capital insertions outside of the mandate areas of the NDAs. Capital insertions, for instance, street lights for Ministry of Health and all kinds of things. So I will cite just one. I'll cite a couple of examples. According to the ICPC, Federal College of Horticulture, Badinkowa, Gombe State, total capital allocation 26.7 billion naira. Now, according to the ICPC, suspected out of mandate allocation 24.5 billion naira. National Institute of Hospitality and Tourism Development, Jabi, Abuja, total capital allocation 6.8 billion naira. Suspected out of mandate allocation 6.5 billion naira. On and on. You have others there, 30 billion out of 31 billion, 30 billion out of mandate allocation. National Lottery Trust Fund, 4.4 billion total capital allocation. Suspected out of mandate allocation, 4.3 billion. This is the business of the legislature. Why should this be so?
Yeah, thank you very much. If you can still hear me, I agree with you that one of the things we are going to be vigilant about in this coming budget is to make sure that the square pegs were put into the square hole, and the round pegs into the round holes. We have observed over the years that most NDAs approach the National Assembly members for their constituency projects and try to see if they can have more funding in their agencies or ministries through these constituency projects that are allocated to the members of the National Assembly. And in so doing, oftentimes they propose these particular projects in agencies that has nothing to do with that particular project. We had a meeting not too long ago. I'm part of the Appropriation Committee, the chairman of the Appropriation Committee. The DG budget was there, and also the chairman of ICPC. We had an engagement, and this issue came up. And oftentimes, what is also described as either multiple budget projects or misplacement of projects into various agencies that didn't have the mandate. If you x-ray them, you find out that it is not as described as it is out there in the public space. We have requested for the list of such, like what we just mentioned, we requested for the list of such projects to be tabled before the National Assembly. The chairman of appropriation requested for that from the ICPC, the document he just mentioned now. Our duty is that in the next meeting, even before considering the budget, to go through all those references in the budget to know whether they are actually existing or not, and the reasons behind them. But going forward, this budget is going to be different because we have spoken to ourselves and the various committees to look out for these complaints, because we improve from time to time, and this budget is going to be one of the ones that we're going to exercise this diligent view into placement of projects. Not that you don't deserve this project in your constituency or in your state, but it must be carried out by those who have the mandate to do that. So we recognize that such existed, but to the volume that is being described is what we don't know. We want to find out either it is the error from the NDAs or it is an oversight from the Parliament. We will find that out and make sure that there is no repeat going forward. But having given me this opportunity, it's important also for me to address one of the issues raised by one of the professors there about constituency projects. Most people really, attack the issue of constituency project. Where do you build constituency projects? Do you build it in the sky? You build constituency projects in the communities where people need it and where the federal government have not actually impacted on the lives of the people. The federal government is not the cities. It's not Abuja, Lagos, Aba. It's not all the major cities. There are some of us who come from rural areas and from being the federal constituency. And I can tell you that it is only the government of President Buhari that has visited my constituency with federal government projects. And this is the truth. From 1999 till date, no federal government project in.
Well, it seems we've lost the honorable down there, Benjamin Kalu, spokesperson of the House of Representatives. But all the same, I was about to chip in, Kingsley, because of time factor. I think that's a good reasons too there.
Yeah, but if it comes on, then we get.
So that will not really stop us from, moving over to the DG Manufacturing Association of Nigeria, Shegun Ajayi Kadiri. We have very limited time remaining on this program. At least would want to maybe get your closing thoughts, that is on the issue at stake. You've already mentioned the worrisome aspects of the budget as far as manufacturing is concerned, and of course the honorable member also said looking forward or going forward, there must be and there should be more public hearings on this before they really work it out finally, and I know you're going to be there too. What would you take to the public hearing in maybe 60 seconds or thereabout?
Madam, if I may just add, Shegun Kadiri, please take this along before you answer the question. The issue of waivers has been raised. What is the attitude of Manufacturers Association to waivers being granted to just only a few of its members?
Okay, thank you very much. And that was what I was hurrying to address. I think we should clearly differentiate between waivers and incentives. What the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria has always asked for is for incentives. If you call it waivers, because sometimes the two are confused, if you call it waivers, they have to be sector-based. And they have to be based on critical analysis of the cost and benefits to government. The Manufacturers Nigeria has always presented requests for waivers or incentives or whatever classification is given on a sector basis. And there are those sectors that need those incentives for them to be able to ramp up on their productivity. So especially now that there's the onset of the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement, areas where we have discovered that sectors need a push, need the heavy lifting, as they say, for them to be able to come to competitive levels. So those incentives or waivers, they are genuine, they are strategic, and there should be no attempt to checkmate those ones. I believe the honorable member is not referring to those ones that have been legitimately acquired. But for those people who go singly to go to government in the night and then they try to get waivers, I think that should be discontinued. There should be no waivers except it is sector-based and it is targeted. We have also told government that we are willing to support government to analyze and track the implementation of those things so that you do not give it to those that are not deserving. In most cases, when those single waivers are given, they are given to people that are not actually involved in the activities that they have asked. And since I have this moment, I would like to mention what the president said. The president said that there is going to be consultations before the Finance Bill 2022 is going to be passed. Now, I think it is important for us to ensure that consultation. Most times, when government is consulting, it's more of a monologue, or whatever is agreed. When you see the policy coming out or the laws coming out, it does not reflect the wishes of the people. We are looking forward to engaging the National Assembly in the public hearings, but it should be evident that their minds should not be made up about specific issues, and that it should be open and rational thinking. What is in the best interest of the country should be taken into consideration. Specifically, the issue of excise, I think there is need to rethink the process. There is need for you to look at the cost and benefit analysis. When you are looking forward to monies that you may not realize because you are going to kill some industries or because you are going to make them more competitive, these are their foreign counterparts who export into the country and are producing from low-cost environment. All those factors have to be taken into consideration. Also, the influx of counterfeit that may come to replace those products that you have excised out of competitiveness, I think you need to take them into consideration. Lastly, the point I want to make is, in terms of forex allocation, you have consistently indicated, and I'm surprised that I didn't see it in the budget as a major focus for government. Because if the president has said he's going to support the manufacturing sector, there has to be prioritization of allocation of forex to the manufacturing sector. When we produce and export, we bring in our repatriated profit in dollars, and we are paid 430 something, highest about 480. Whereas when we want to buy forex, we go to the bank, we don't get it. We have to go to the autonomous, or we have to go to the parallel market, and we source it at 700. So, and we need this to bring in raw materials that are not available locally. So I think there should be a deliberate attempt by government to prioritize this allocation to the productive sector, so that you'll be able to replace the economy, and then all the objectives that the budget has set out to achieve, at least those aspects that has to do with expectations from the private sector can be met.
Right, Ajayi Kadiri, thank you very much. Very quickly, we understand we got Honorable Benjamin Kalu back. Honorable Benjamin Kalu, we are pressed for time now. Can you do this in 30 seconds? Your closing thoughts. 30 seconds, please.
Thank you very much. I want to say that the word we use as insertions in the budget is not really insertion. It's
but we have to appreciate Honorable Benjamin Kalu, spokesperson of the House of Representatives. He was with us via Zoom, and then also via Zoom from Lagos, Segun Ajayi Kadiri, Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for being around. From our Kaduna Network Center, we are joined by Professor Yusha Ango, a professor of finance and entrepreneurship, Kaduna State University, and a regular guest in Good Morning Nigeria. Here in the studios, Dr. Tope Fashua, an economist and also a regular also in Good Morning Nigeria. Thank you for being around. Okay, so that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Join us tomorrow, same time, for a fresh package, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Yusuf Udawusman. Thank you so much for coming along.
You can watch NTA International live on your TV, computer, iPad, tablet and phone. Log on to visiontv.co.uk and click on Entertainment, then NTA. You can also download the iOS or Android app on your mobile device to watch NTA International on the go, anywhere in the world. NTA International. Your window through the world.
Latest entrant, latest technology. Welcome to Intel 4G LTE Advanced and experience super fast internet access today. Visit intel.com.ng or any of our stores in Lagos, Abuja, and Port Harcourt to get started. Intel. Live more.
This is the network service of the NTA.